Howdy y'all, and welcome. Hope everybody's doing well out there so far. Now before we get into what we could expect for the month ahead, just a disclaimer here that we cannot accurately predict the future. Please take this August outlook with a grain of salt. Now before we get into the video, here is what we'll be covering. We'll be taking a look at the key factors influencing our August weather, and then we'll take a look at the long range weather models, which includes the temperature and precipitation anomalies. Basically, it's to determine whether or not we're going to be above or below average for the month ahead. And then we'll take a look at the sea surface temperatures and patterns, and that'll lead us into our hurricane outlook and recap for July. And then we'll take a look at the expert guidance at the Climate Prediction Center and provide my thoughts and a bold prediction on what we could expect. Then an analog year, which is 2015, and how that compares to this year. And we'll wrap it all up with some facts and folklore and an agricultural outlook and recap for July. And then we'll end it off with a final summary and some key takeaways, so you can know what to expect for the month ahead. Now, here are some key factors that will play a role in our August weather. And as y'all know, if y'all watch my winter outlook videos, that there are more key factors than just this. I had a hard time looking for more key factors than INSO, but this is just what I could come up with, and this is what plays a role in our August weather. So basically, we're going to be coming in on what's called a super El Nino. And if you don't know what that means, basically it's where the Pacific Basin out by the equator is warming up. You have warm waters out there compared to cold waters. Cold waters are basically a La Nina. Warm waters are El Nino. And if you have a mix of both, you're in an INSO-neutral pattern. Basically what this means is that there's going to be more tropical storms that shift further east, changes the jet stream and causes more severe weather in most cases, and tilts the odds towards a hotter south, wetter southwest, and a busier eastern Pacific, which leads into monsoon season. We are in monsoon season, by the way, which means basically it's going to be wet down there in the southwest with more flooding, essentially. And of course, we got the August heat ridge as we are in the peak of summer. What else is new? Everybody knows it's going to be hot for the month of August. And if you think my bold prediction is going to be about it being hot, then you're wrong. But basically, it is going to be hot for the month of August. That's really nothing new. And on top of that, we're going to be having what's called more corn sweat. And what is corn sweat? Well, it's basically where the corns emit a lot of moisture like us humans do, and usually leads to more mugginess and more severe weather in most cases. And did you know that dry soils actually heat the air faster than moist soil does? And back to the corn sweat, sometimes this can lead to derechos as well in most cases. I'll put the definition of a derecho right here if you don't know what that is. Basically, it's a big old windstorm that lasts for quite a while. And before I blab my mouth enough, basically all you gotta think about is we're going to be in a super El Nino, which leads to a wetter southwest, hotter country overall, and could lead to more severe weather in the upper Midwest, northern plains, and potentially in the Great Lakes region. So, as we take a look down here, this is a pretty high chance of this occurring. And keep in mind that August weather isn't controlled by one pattern alone. It's built from 6 ingredients working together. When they line up, they determine where heat builds, storms track, humidity rises, and where the greatest weather risks develop. So basically, prepare for hot and wet weather and potentially stormy weather as well, which what else is new? We're in August. Usually August is pretty dry. And speaking of the dry conditions as we head into August, the latest release was on July 30th. And as you can see, pretty dry out west. And there has been some fires out by Oregon. I was watching the news last night and they were talking about some sort of wildfire conditions out there in Oregon, which I don't know what's up with all the fires here lately. There's been fires up in Canada, Oregon, England even. France, I think, was even included in that. So I guess the whole world is on fire, I guess, due to the super El Nino. So nothing new with that, I guess. But you can also see Florida is also pretty dry too. And Southwest, y'all could use the rain. And y'all are going to be coming in on more rain due to this monsoon season picking up here in August potentially. The Mid-Atlantic's also dry, but the greatest odds of rainfall is going to be down here in the southwest. So first, we're going to take a look at the precipitation anomalies to determine whether or not we'll be getting any sort of drought relief and wildfire relief out west and even down in Florida. And we're going to take a look at more models than just the GEFS. We got all of these weekly models here, which includes the Euro Weeklies, CSV2, CMC, and we also have the monthly models, which is the Euro Seasonal, CSV2 Seasonal, and the CANSIP Seasonal. We're also going to take a look at the temperature anomalies as well with all these models, and then we'll get into the sea surface temperatures, patterns, and then we'll take a look at the hurricane outlook, which will lead into our expert guidance at the Climate Prediction Center. But first, we're going to take a look at the GEFS. And keep in mind, again, please take this with a grain of salt. Anything over a week out is virtually impossible to forecast. So definitely, again, do not take this seriously, but this could also happen as well. As we push this forward into the beginning of August, it's looking like the southeast could be pretty soggy to start. Central part of the country could be very, very dry. Southwest, the monsoon season is looking to pick up down there, but overall it's looking like majority of the country is heading into a dry pattern unless you live down here in the southeast all the way up here into the northeast. Head off into the middle of the month. This pattern is looking pretty much the same. Got the southwest coming in on more above average precipitation, which could be monsoon rains potentially. Central part of the country is pretty dry, and it's looking like Florida is going to start to dry out as we head into the middle of the month, which is not good news. The only place coming in on heavy rainfall potentially here is the mid-Atlantic region. Head off into the end of the month. Well, not look like any sort of relief from the dry conditions here in the central part of the country. Ohio Valley's coming in on some heavy rainfall, but down by Florida, y'all are not getting any relief down there, unfortunately. So any relief will be at the beginning of the month, but really no relief in sight here as we head into the middle and end of August. But if you live out here in the southwest, definitely going to be coming in on a lot of rainfall out there. Out here in the northwest, though, not looking like a good story out there, at least according to the GEFS anyways. So any wildfire relief here in Oregon, not going to be getting it here in August according to the GEFS. But of course, we got more models than just that. We got the Euro Weeklies, and as a side note, the Euro Weeklies like to show a warmer bias when it comes to temperatures, and we'll get in that here in a little bit. But we can see here at the beginning of August, looks like we're going to be starting off on a soggy note here from Minnesota all the way over here into the northeast by New Hampshire and Vermont, as well as down here in the southeast into Florida. But out west and into the south central part of the country, looking pretty dry over there, so not good for the drought relief here if you live out west, but pretty good if you live here out east. Push off into the middle of the month, let's say the 15th to 17th time frame, looking very soggy here in the southwest and the Rocky Mountain west, which is some good news. Monsoon rain's going to be providing some drought relief out there. Texas, y'all are still going to be pretty dry here in the Ohio Valley. Be pretty wet, but Florida, pretty much the same story as what the GEFS was showing us, with a pretty soggy beginning of the month, but a dry middle and even end of the month. As we can see, as we head into September, a lot more uncertainties on the map, but we can see the desert southwest coming in on monsoon season, more monsoon rains occurring down there, providing some drought relief, which is good news. Head further west, not good for the drought conditions, a lot more uncertainty out there, and really majority of the country's coming in on a lot of uncertainties as we head towards September, which is expected honestly, but we stick with the Euro Weeklies. Basically, beginning of the month is going to be very soggy here in the upper Midwest and Great Lakes, and really much of the eastern part of the country, to be honest, but very dry down here in the southern plains, very wet in the southwest, but further west you go, the more uncertainties could be pretty dry out there as well. Heading to the middle of the month, of course, still remaining wet in the southwest, drought relief occurring here in the Rocky Mountains, drying out down by Florida though, not good news. More uncertainties on the map as we head towards the end of the month though. Now next we got the CSV2, and I like this model compared to the rest of the models because you can see clearly who's going to be below average and who is going to be above average. And we can see as we head into the beginning of August, looks like the Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, and even the Mid-Atlantic region, or much of the eastern part of the country honestly, is coming in on above average precipitation. The rest of the country is looking pretty dry though. Surprisingly, here in the southwest, you are looking pretty dry to start off. But as we head off into the middle of the month, this is going to change. You can see that the Rocky Mountains is going to be coming in on above average precipitation, while the eastern part of the country is going to be drying out. So kind of a pattern flip here on the CSV2. This model definitely differs between the Euro Weeklies and the GEFS. Head off into the end of the month. Well, of course, more uncertainties on the map. Of course, the further we head out, the more uncertainties there are, of course. But we can see out west, gonna be pretty wet out there, and it's looking to be pretty dry down here in Texas and Oklahoma, which has been pretty persistent with all of the models. And we can see the Mid-Atlantic also drying out, while the Ohio Valley is gonna be pretty soggy. So what about the CMC model? Honestly, this is my least favorite model, but we're still gonna take a look at it anyways. This one's in more alignment with what the Euro Weeklies was showing us, with above average precipitation here in the northern plains all the way into the Ohio Valley and really much of the eastern part of the country. Really a similar story here in the southern plains with a lot of below average precipitation down there. Head off into the middle of the month, showing a different picture here, showing us that really much of the country is heading into above average precipitation unless you live down here and the southern plains all the way down here into Florida. Head off into the end of the month. Of course, there is more uncertainties, but if I had to bet the horse, I would bet the horse that the southwest is going to be coming in on above average precipitation. Drought relief is going to be occurring out there. Eastern part of the country is kind of a mixed bag. I think the upper Midwest, Northeast is going to be coming in on above average precipitation. Southeast, I think, are going to be coming in on well-needed rainfall at the beginning of the month, but I think that's going to be the only relief you get. Because I think at the end of the month and middle of the month, it's pretty dry down there. Here in Texas and Oklahoma, prepare for some drought conditions here, as I think majority of the month is going to be pretty dry. Out here by Oregon, Washington, and California, I think y'all are going to remain dry out there, so no drought relief out there is going to be in store for y'all, unfortunately. So as we take a look at the precipitation anomalies according to the Euro seasonal, take a look at the month of August overall, it's looking like majority of the country is going to be pretty dry unless you live here in the Rocky Mountain West, which is usually pretty typical of a super El Nino. Take a look at the CSV2, different picture here. They're showing us that much of the country is heading into above average precipitation unless you live down here in the southern plains into the southeast, which I would actually be in agreement with this, as a lot of models were showing that that Texas and Oklahoma was going to be pretty dry overall for the month, while Florida was going to be dry at the middle and end of the month, but coming in on heavy precipitation here at the beginning of the month. So if I had to bet the horse, I would bet the CSV2 would be pretty accurate for the month of August. And as we take a look at the CanSIP seasonal, sort of in disagreement with this one. This one's typically in more alignment with the Climate Prediction Center, which we'll get into here in a little bit. But we can see that the Southwest, really much of the country is coming in on above average precipitation unless you live down here in the southeast. Now, I know I did say that we were going to get into the tropics, but I do want to change it up here and show you all the expert guidance anyways. Here's what the experts at the Climate Prediction Center have to show us. Basically, the southeast is going to be pretty dry overall. I would be in agreement with that, as well as up here in the Great Lakes and parts of the Northeast. Now, I would sort of be in disagreement with that, but I know where they're coming from. We hit past the first couple of weeks, starts to become more uncertain after that. I would definitely be in agreement with the Southwest into the Northern Plains becoming above average due to monsoonal rains here for the month of August. So I think that the southeast into Texas and Oklahoma is going to be pretty dry, while the northeast, Great Lakes, really eastern part of the country is kind of up in the air. I think the beginning of the month is going to be pretty soggy out east, and then the middle of the month, I think we're going to start to dry out. The western part of the country, I think you are going to be overall above average due to the monsoonal rains occurring due to some tropical activity out there in the Pacific Basin, while over here by Oregon, Washington, and California, I think you're going to start to dry out there, and the wildfire conditions are going to worsen out there, unfortunately. But of course, please take this with a grain of salt, though. Now, on to the temperature anomalies. Now, we all know it's going to be hot in August. What else is new? But what do the models have to show us? Sometimes models like to surprise us, but we can see here at the beginning of the month, showing us some below average temperatures here in the eastern part of the country into the northwest, while the rest of the country is obviously going to be above average. Now, being below average don't mean it's going to be cold, just means it's going to be a little cooler than it has been. Head off into the middle of the month, it's going to change. You can see more of the country's coming in on above average temperatures, and we're coming in on well above average temperatures here out by Texas and Oklahoma, which this heat on top of some dry conditions could be a worst case scenario down there, could worsen the drought conditions. But here in the Great Lakes and Northeast could remain below average here even through the middle of the month. And will this persist all the way out through the end of the month? Well, I would say yes, but I think we're going to be heading into above average temperatures as we head into September, though. So I think August could be a little cooler here out east, but we still got a lot of models to go. So next we got the Euro weeklies. Similar story here. Northwest, Great Lakes, parts of the Mid-Atlantic and Southeast coming in on below average temperatures, while the rest of the country is heading into above average temperatures. Head off into the middle of the month. We can see a little bit of the Southwest coming in on below average temperatures, which is due to some monsoon rains. I would be in agreement with that. The rest of the country is coming in on above average temperatures unless you live up here in the Northeast. Head off into the end of the month. It's looking like the rest of the country is coming in on above average temperatures. So far the trend is showing that the Great Lakes Northeast coming in on below average temperatures for a majority of the month, as well as up here in the Northwest, although it's showing above average temperatures as we head into the middle and end of the month. We stick with both the GEFS and Euro weeklies. Now CSV2. Well, similar picture actually. So all the models are in agreement so far. That's a rarity. Usually all the models differ. They've been differing when it comes to the precipitation anyways. And usually the temperature anomalies differ in the wintertime. So you're going to have to stay tuned to my winter outlook, as I think we're going to be heading into a wild ride here this winter. But according to the CSV2, looks like the eastern part of the country, northwest, below average, rest of the country can be above average. Head off into the middle of the month. Well, showing a different picture, we can see that majority of the western part of the country is coming in on well below average temperatures, as well as down here by Texas, Northeast, and Great Lakes. But here in the central and northern plains, only place coming in on above average temperatures. Heading to the end of the month, it's looking cool overall, really. Some places could be above average, but I'm thinking that according to the CSV2, majority of the country is going to be cool overall for the month of August. Now, I would be in disagreement with this. I don't think this is going to happen, but you never know. So I will say to take this forecast with a grain of salt or pepper. Just depends which one you like. Now the CMC model. Painting a similar picture here. All the models are in agreement so far that the eastern part of the country is coming in on cooler than normal temperatures, as well as up here in the northwest, with the central part of the country being above average. Middle of the month, well, painting a similar story here to what the CSV2 was showing us, with below average here out west, which is kind of a hodgepodge of both above average and below average, but leaning below average out there. A little bit below average here in the northeast and some of the Great Lakes, and above average here in the southeast into the plain states. End of the month, we're starting to warm up a little bit here out east, so heading into above average temperatures as we head into September, while we're still going to remain cool here in the southwest. So what does the monthly models have to show us overall? Well, keep in mind the Euro seasonal likes to show us a warmer bias, and we can see that here. Much of the country is tending to a warmer than normal pattern. What else was new? CSV2. This one differs. I would actually be in agreement with this. I think that portions of the Ohio Valley are going to be cooler than normal here in August. I would be in disagreement, though, with it being cooler than normal here in the northern plains, which you never know. This could also happen as well. Southeast and Rocky Mountain West coming in on above average temperatures. Take a look at the CANSEP seasonal. Surprisingly, this one is showing below average temperatures here in the central part of the country, so we could be heading into a cooler than normal pattern for much of us here in August. Now, my thoughts are basically I think we're going to be coming in on a major heat dome here in the central part of the country, mainly here in Texas and Oklahoma, while over here in the Great Lakes, Northeast and Northwest are all going to start off very, very cool. But as we head towards the middle and end of the month, I think we're really going to start to warm up in those areas. So what does the experts have to show us? Well, they're showing us that the southeast into the northeast and into the central plains going to be above average, as well as out here out west. But up here in the northern plains, they're showing below average temperatures, and to be determined here from Arizona all the way up here into Michigan, which I would actually be in agreement with this, other than the northern plains being below average. I think it's going to be above average up here. Well, it's going to be a little bit below average up here in the northwest and Great Lakes and northeast, with the rest of the country coming in on a major heat wave. Now, being cooler than normal don't mean it's going to be cold. It means it's going to be not as hot, but still hot, if that makes any sense. So essentially, we could be coming into another potential heat dome here in the central part of the country, but please, again, take that for what that is. Might not happen in the first place, but you never know. I would trust the experts over me, so this is what could happen. So on to the hurricane recap and outlook for August. As we take a look back at July, here's how it turned out. Well, in the Atlantic Basin, it's a C-, which is a pretty high grade actually for an El Nino kind of season. It was overall quiet with only 2 named storms, Arthur and Barry. Below normal activity so far this season, which is expected due to strong wind shear, which is keeping systems apart and storms weak. You can see Arthur and Barry were the only ones that formed out there in the Gulf. Now, the Eastern Pacific was very, very active. We had Alvin, Barbara, Cosme, Dahlia, and even Elida. So 5 named storms in the first hurricane already this season in the Pacific Basin, which is very consistent with an El Nino pattern due to very warm Pacific waters. And let's go ahead and get into that. And before we do, did you know that August and September actually account for about 70% of all Atlantic hurricanes? So we are heading into peak hurricane season, y'all. And let's go ahead and get into the Atlantic and Pacific basins. And to do this, we're going to take a look at the sea surface temperatures out, and we can see that the Gulf is still pretty hot out there. Pretty typical though, shallower waters compared to out here in the ocean, or compared to out here in the Atlantic basin. We can see it's a little cool out there off the Africa coast. Looking to warm up a little bit though, so there could be some activity here at the beginning of August, but also could not happen as well due to more wind shear and Saharan dust and limiting factors that could play a role in not much activity out there. There could be boiling waters out here, but if we have a lot of wind shear and a lot of inhibiting factors, there's nothing that's going to form out there. So I think the waters are going to be heating up for the month of August, so definitely be aware of that out there. Pacific Basin, y'all have been dealing with a lot of activity out there due to the El Nino. Usually there's more hurricanes and tropical storms in the Pacific Basin compared to the Atlantic Basin during El Nino seasons. And we can see that the waters out there, out by Mexico, are really, really hot. Really, really cool up here by California, which is pretty typical though. Out by Hawaii, got a lot of warm waters going on out there, so there could be more activity going on out there. And as we take a look overall for the month of August, according to the CSV2, going to be above average out there, while the Atlantic Basin going to be relatively above average out there, but that really don't mean much because even if we have hot waters out here and a hurricane gets forming, we have wind shear and Saharan dust, they ain't not going to be forming out there. And I did promise to take a look at the simulated infrared, and the furthest this goes out is through August 4th to 5th, so keep that in mind. But we took a look out here and not much is going to be occurring out there. There are going to be some waves off of Africa, but I think they're going to be wiped out before they even form into anything. And we got to watch out for a potential system here off of the coast of Florida as we head into August 7th. I'll be keeping my eye on that, of course, but I don't think it's going to turn into much, of course. We pull up simulated radar here. This takes us out even further, a little more messier, but we can see that not much is going to be occurring out there. Even the August 7th storm, I think, isn't going to turn into much, but definitely something to watch. It might even turn into a tropical depression at the most. So if you see any fear mongering out there, don't buy into it just yet. You never know. Could have one sneaky storm roll in once in a while out there. Now, the Pacific Basin, we have Genevieve out there, out here in the Eastern Pacific. We'll get into the hurricane center here in a little bit. And we also have what looks to be a typhoon or something out here out west of Hawaii. I have a hard time tracking these. Hurricane Center don't do a good job of tracking these, which I guess is self-explanatory. It doesn't involve Americas, so I guess I'll take a look into that, I guess. But as far as Hawaii goes, there's not anything that's going to be affecting y'all. Y'all might come in on some heavy rainfall here in the near term, though, so definitely watch out for that. Take a look at the simulated radar here. We can see that Genevieve is going to be going north of y'all, so I wouldn't expect much to occur out there other than probably just heavy rainfall over the next couple of weeks. So might just be good to go out there, actually, as y'all haven't been dealing with the trade winds here as of late, which has been meaning it's been very, very hot out there. So y'all will be coming back into it very, very soon. Don't worry. And as we take a look at the Hurricane Center, we can see Genevieve out there. Currently a tropical storm. Going to head into a tropical depression by Sunday. And by 2 a.m. on Wednesday, it's going to be turning out into the Pacific Ocean, and it's going to be churning out there in the open waters and not affect y'all out by Hawaii. So nothing to worry about out there in Hawaii. So that's some good news. Next 7 days out here, nothing going on at all. Central Pacific, nothing out there either. Atlantic Basin, not expecting anything in the next 7 days. That disturbance I saw off the coast of Florida might be a nothing burger, but you never know. Definitely keep an eye on it for y'all though. So as we take a look at August, you can see that the Eastern Pacific is expected to be above normal, while the Atlantic Basin is expected to be below normal. What we're watching is an African tropical waves, which we did see on the GFS that there is going to be some waves off of Africa. But if it encounters wind shear, nothing's going to happen, obviously. So we're expecting limited Atlantic development due to strong wind shear and dry air intrusions. So far, we've only had 2 named storms and no hurricanes. We're going to have fewer storms likely. And even though we're going to have warmer waters, we're still going to have limited development due to that strong wind shear and limiting factors other than that. So bottom line, Atlantic is expected to remain quiet with fewer storms and a lower threat of landfalls, while the Eastern Pacific is going to be expecting more storms due to warm water, which is going to lead to more monsoonal activity in the southwest. So Hawaii, watch out, may come in on some tropical activity out there due to an active tropical season in the Pacific Basin. So peak hurricane seasons here, y'all gotta watch closely, of course. Then that leads into my bold prediction of one Atlantic hurricane that will beat the odds, despite El Nino, wind shear, and otherwise a quiet basin. One tropical wave could find a brief pocket of favorable conditions and strengthen faster than expected. And we can see the sequence that could occur if this happened. We have a tropical wave that leaves Africa. Hostile environment keeps it weak. Then all of a sudden a brief favorable window opens, and then bam, we have rapid intensification with a hurricane that defied the odds. So bottom line, the Atlantic may stay quieter overall this season, but quiet does not mean storm free. One system could look at the right window and organize quickly and become August surprise hurricane. So will it happen? To be determined. I don't think it will, but that's why I only gave it a 70% chance of it occurring. So now on to an analog year of what we could expect. I'm thinking that we could be coming in on an August just like we had back in 2015. Why is that? Well, we had an El Nino that was strengthening back in 2015. We had well above normal heat, an active Eastern Pacific, and a quieter Atlantic with an active monsoon season for the month of August, and we have both patterns occurring here for the month of August, so 2015 is definitely a match. So as a thank you for staying this far in the video, did you know that for the month of August, hottest nights of the summer are expected? We have the Perseid meteor shower occurring, hurricane season ramps up, corn sweat occurs, we have peak sunshine, and we have more African tropical waves occurring. So there's some fun facts you may or may not even known about this August. Now here's some folklore. Heavy dew, fair weather too. Heavy morning dew often signals fair weather ahead. Why? Well, dew forms on clear, calm nights with stable air, a sign that rain is not imminent. Red sky at night, sailor's delight. Red sky at night, sailor's delight. Red sky in the morning, sailor take warning. Evening red skies often mean moisture is far away. Morning red skies can mean weather is on the way. And number 3, if August starts warm and fair, a fair beginning to August was said to favor a settled harvest season, because warm, fair starts were believed to lead to steady weather patterns during the critical harvest season, which August is a critical harvest season, by the way. And speaking of the agricultural outlook, here's a recap into July. Looks like the heat was a C, rainfall was a B minus, crop stress was a C plus, and monsoon season is rated a B. So we had a lot of rainfall overall amongst the country, but the heat is taking a toll on the crops. For August, well, overall favorable, but the weather will matter. Warmer weather will drive growth, as long as it's not too hot. Timely rains will be critical. Heat and humidity will increase the stress. So if it's too hot and too rainy, nothing will grow. But if not as hot, moderately rainy, obviously we're going to have stuff growing. So we can see corn grain fill begins in many areas. Heat helps growth if moisture is available. Extended dry periods could reduce yields. Outlook for August, generally good with timely rainfall. Soybeans, August rainfall is especially important. Moisture supports pod fill. Hot, dry weather can limit production. Outlook, cautiously optimistic. Now the livestock, heat stress increases during prolonged hot spells. Shade, ventilation, and clean water remain essential. Warm nights reduce recovery from daytime heat due to it being hot at nighttime in August. So outlook, manage heat stress closely. And last but certainly not least, southwest rangeland, monsoon storms, improve forage and soil moisture. Localized flash flooding remains possible. Benefits vary depending on storm coverage, so basically generally positive with storm coverage as we head into the meat and potatoes of monsoon season down there. So the big picture, most crops enter August in generally good condition. Timely rainfall will be critical though during grain fill. Heat and humidity will increase stress on crops and livestock. The southwest monsoon should continue helping rangeland and water supplies. So the key takeaway is good crops aren't made by heat or rain alone. The best harvests come when sunshine, timely rainfall, and smart farm management work together. So this month will be an important month in determining this year's final yields. So thank you farmers for what you do. Without you, the majority of Americans would starve. So the key takeaways of what you could expect for this August, it's going to be hotter overall for much of the country. There could be some caveats though. I'm thinking some parts of the country could be cooler than normal, especially here in the Great Lakes and Northeast region, and even in the Southwest. So this August could surprise us, although thinking overall it's going to be hotter than normal. Storm and rain patterns, well, storms favor a northern tier, heavy downpours at times, flooding risk in spots, especially in the southwest. The south stays hotter and drier between storms. So wetter north, hotter south is essentially what I'm getting at here. Monsoon season is going to start to pick up as we are going to be doing a lot more rainfall in the southwest. Daily storms return to the southwest. Like I said earlier, localized flash flooding possible, much needed moisture for rangeland reservoirs and water supplies as you are coming in on some drought conditions down there. And of course, heading into peak hurricane season, the Atlantic enters its most active stretch in August and September, peak hurricane season. The Eastern Pacific remains very active, more storms and potential hurricanes than average, so stay informed and be ready. This is the busiest part of the season. So essentially, the Atlantic is looking pretty quiet for August, and really quiet overall for the whole entire season, although there could be one hurricane that could overcome the odds. And the Eastern Pacific looking to be remaining pretty active out there. And of course, the analog year, looking back to 2015, we had a strengthening El Nino, which was a very, very similar year to what this year is. So basically, August is bringing the heat, humidity, and storms and tropical threats all at once, although be some caveats here in August. August could surprise us, as there could be some cool conditions here in the Ohio Valley. Major severe weather potential here out by Iowa due to that corn sweat and a potential derecho as well. Southwest, you are going to be dealing with some monsoonal rains, which is pretty typical. It might be due to that tropical activity in the Eastern Pacific, bringing all that moisture up to y'all. And drought relief, well, I think you're all going to be coming in on drought relief down there. While I think parts of Oregon, California, and Washington, I think you are going to remain dry out there. So no relief out there, as well as not really much relief down here by Florida, as I think beginning of the month, I think you are going to be coming in on well-needed rainfall, but at the end of the month, it'll be pretty dry down there. So basically, August could throw some curveballs in there, but I think overall it's going to be hot for much of the country, wet in the southwest, and I think it's going to be soggy in the Ohio Valley and upper Midwest, while it's going to be dry everywhere else due to this super El Nino. So I hope each and every one of y'all enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Appreciate all of y'all for watching, and until next time, never stop forecasting.